The real Uhtred of Bebbanburg. As the half-brother of Uhtred and the son of Ealdorman Edelwulf of Berkshire and Edelred Musil, Uhtred was born Osbert in 856 in Bebbanburg, Northumbria, during the struggles between King Osbert and Aila. His father played the role of kingmaker because he ruled the land south of the Tweed and north of the Tyne. Educated by the priest Beocca, Osbert was raised to become a Catholic priest as the second child. A Viking invasion under Earl Ragnar beheaded Uthred's older brother in 866, transforming Osbert into Uhtred, in keeping with the family tradition that the eldest son should be named Uhtred. He became his father's heir. In the days following Uhtred's father's departure, his uncle, Elfric, with 30 men, was left to protect Uhtred as his father joined Kings Aila and Osbert in capturing York from the Vikings. Upon learning that the older Uhtred had been killed in battle by Scallion, Elfric ordered Scallion to murder the young Uhtred. The story begins during the transfer of St. Cuthbert's remains from Chester-le-Street to Durham in 995. Uhtred and his monks went to Durham to clear the site of the new cathedral. According to Simeon of Durham, in this period, Uhtred probably married Ecfrida, the daughter of Bishop Alduin, who was the founder of the new cathedral. As a result of this marriage, he received several church-owned estates. In 1006, Northumbria was invaded and Durham was sieged by Malcolm II, King of Scots. As a weak and ineffective ruler, Ethelred II, also known as the Readiless, couldn't send aid to Northumbrians. Ealdorman Waltheof, Uthred's father, remained at Bamburgh Castle as he was too old and frail to fight. Taking over his father's role, Uhtred quickly secured a decisive victory over King Malcolm's army by raising an army from Bernicia and Yorkshire. Uhtred won by a decisive margin. Severed Scots' heads were washed by local women, who were paid a cow for each, then staked to Durham's walls. Even though his father was still alive, King Ethelred II rewarded Uhtred with the Ealdormanry of Bamburgh. In the meantime, Edric Striona, the treacherous servant of Ethelred II, was ordered to kill Ealdorman Elfhem of York, under orders from Ethelred II, and he selected Uhtred to succeed him as Earldom of York, thereby joining northern and southern Northumbria. The Anglo-Saxons of southern Northumbria seem to have been distrusted by Ethelred because he did not trust their nation. At Shrewsbury, the crafty and treacherous Edric Striona prepared a great feast for the noble ealdorman Elfhem, at which he greeted him like an old friend when he intended as a guest. Shortly after, he led him into the woods to hunt after preparing an ambush. During the hunt, Edric dazzled a Shrewsbury butcher, Godwine Porthon, which means the town dog, with great gifts and many promises so that he might commit the crime long before, and suddenly leapt out of the ambush and execrably killed the ealdorman Elfhem. Then, some time after the ambush, his sons, Wulfi and Eufgit, were blinded at Cookham, where King Ethelred himself was staying. Back to Uhtred, the House of Bamburgh was thus united under Uhtred's leadership, after he succeeded Edelred as ealdorman of York and united northern and southern Northumbria. A few years later, he divorced his wife, Ecfrida, and married Sige, daughter of Stur's son Ulf, in an effort to gain the favor of the Danes in Diria. The city of York had a rich citizen named Styr. As a result of the marriage, Edulf, and later Edulf III, was Gospatric were born. A descendant of Gospatric was the infamous Eadwulf Russ, who was responsible for Bishop Walcher to death. As the English were preoccupied with Viking raids in 1018 or 1016, Malcolm the Foreignac, king of Northumbria, marched south with King Owen the Bald, king of Strathclyde, and together they burned much of the land. Battle broke out near the Tweed River at Carham, where Uthred's force encountered them. The battle was described by Simeon of Durham as vicious and menacing. A few years back, a Danish invasion of England took place in 1013 under King Sweyn Forkbeard. Despite the resistance of the Londoners, King Ethelred and a Viking leader who had defected to him, Thorkel the Tall, was present. After that, Sweyn proceeded west to Bath, where he obtained the submission of the Western Thanes, seeing that they would suffer terrible punishment if they resisted further. The Londoners followed their example and finally submitted. At Gainsborough, Uhtred submitted to Sweyn like all the Danes in the north, having fled to the Isle of Wight. Ethelred joined his wife and children in Normandy with her nephew, Duke Richard, where they had sought refuge. Christmas 1013 marked Sweyn's coronation as King of England after London had fallen to him. As he threatened Bury St. Edmund's Abbey on the 3rd of February 1014, he died suddenly of apoplexy. It had been less than 2 months since he ascended to power. Uthred joined the Witan in recalling Ethelred, and he transferred his allegiance back to him on his return, where he married Ethelred's daughter Elfgifu. With Edmund Ironside, Uthred's brother-in-law and the son of Ethelred Ironside, Uthred fought in Cheshire and the surrounding shires in 1016. It was during Uthred's absence from his lands that Swen's son, Canute, invaded Yorkshire. As King of England, Uthred owed him homage, despite being outnumbered. Unfortunately, Thumbrand the Hold, Uthred's servant, Wighill, and King Canute conspired to murder Uthred and his 40 men en route to a meeting with Canute. Later, the brother of Uthred, who was Eadwulf Cudel, succeeded him in Bernicia. With Uthred's murder, a blood feud began between Anglo-Saxons that lasted for generations. Avenging his father, Ildred managed to kill Thumbrand the Hold before being killed by his father's son Karl. Following the Norman conquest, Earl Waltheof, Ildred's grandson, and his men killed most of Karl's sons and grandsons to avenge Ildred's death. The blood feuds common in Northumberland at this time are among the most notorious. Later, William the Conqueror executed Waltheof personally. Throughout Bernicia, Uthred's descendants continued to rule, particularly Ildred, Earl of Bamberg, killed in 1038, his son from his marriage to Ecgfrida, and Edulf, killed in 1041, his son from his marriage to Sige. The earldom of northern Northumbria was briefly held by Edulf's son, Ulsa, until he also died in 1067. Gaspatrick Swinton, son of Edulf the Conqueror, founded the Swinton family dynasty, whose son Edulf Roos famously murdered William Walcher, Bishop of Durham, exasperating William the Conqueror's desire to invade the region once more. As a result of Uthred's marriage to Elgifu, a daughter Oljuth was born, who married Maldred, brother of Duncan I of Scotland, and held a son named Gaspatrick, the Earl of Northumbria, from 1068 to 1072. Now, in modern culture, Bernard Cornwell, an English author, derived inspiration for these Saxon stories from the fact that he was a direct descendant of Uthred the Bold, whom he uses as the basis for the series' protagonist, Lord Uthred of Bebbanburg. Uthred the Bold's life is reflected in a number of events in the series, including his siege of Bebbanburg by the Scots and his hanging of severed heads. The main character, Uthred, is fictitious, unlike many of the other characters in the series who are closely related to historical figures, such as Alfred the Great, Guthrum, and King Guthred. At the Battle of York, 867, he was about 10 years old, more than 100 years before the historical Uthred the Bold, who lived in the middle of the 9th century. Based on the Saxon stories, the television series The Last Kingdom features fictitious Lord Uthred of Bebbanburg as the main character.